Hello and welcome to a Week 10 edition of the Kamasutra Show. It is called the Kamasutra Show, of course, because we will be going position by position through Sunday's main slates, both DraftKings and FanDuel. You may notice that there are two of us here who you normally recognize on the Friday night show, myself and Evan Silva. There is a third man who I don't even know who this is. This looks like Wiggins, but it's not. Introduce yourself, sir.
This is fake Wiggins, fake Andrew Wiggins, here to give the cash game takes, the hippie takes, the eclectic music takes. And I'll do my cash game lineup review on Monday. You guys can see it on the screencast. I'll take your questions. I'm here for you.
In all seriousness, shout out to Wiggins. Had his kid, I think it was Monday night / Tuesday morning. Willow Wiggins. Welcome to the world, Willow Wiggins, part of the ETR family. Now Wiggins has two kids, Wyatt and Willow. I think those are both reasonably hippie names for what it's worth, but going with WW for both of them. So family's doing well. For the update, everybody is happy and healthy, and big shout out to them. Drew will be doing part of this show in Wiggins' blonde mustache. We don't know how long it's going to last. Evan, what's going on tonight?
What's up? Yeah, I just want to know what the over-under on how long that mustache is going to stay on Dink's face is. I mean, it looks like it already almost fell off.
Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe.
But yeah, no, I'm excited to do this show with Dink. You know, he came on the Swolecast back in the day a couple times, chopped it up. Always a good time talking with one of the smartest dudes, maybe the smartest dude in the entire industry.
Yeah, and by the way, Dink has been in the bunker preparing for NBA. He is incredibly tilted that the NBA has decided to come back like 2 months ahead of schedule because he just got out of the war room and now he's going back into the war room for NBAs. But we'll be releasing and announcing a lot of stuff about what's going on with NBA soon. Stay tuned for that. As for Sunday's main slates, this is going to be loose, man, because for whatever reason, Mike Davis's price got way down there and Duke Johnson's price got way down there. And we also have some really good values, I think, at wide receiver in the mid-range. And then we also are getting this news on Kenyon Drake, which we'll talk about more in a second, where Kenyon Drake I thought was going to play. But the more I think about it and the more I read, I kind of think Kenyon Drake's going to sit out now, creating even more value and even more running back options. So this slate is going to be wild and high scoring. Let's start at the quarterback position, where, of course, the game we expect to be highest scoring will be the two most popular games on the slate, Buffalo, Arizona, and LA against Seattle. I think that if I could pick any quarterback, regardless of salary, it would be Kyler. But man, it would be really close between Kyler, Russ, and Josh Allen. I'm curious, Evan, if any of those three stick out to you as like, man, one of these guys is better than the others, because we have enough salary to fit pretty much anyone that we want between Kyler, Russ, and Josh Allen.
I would rank them probably number one, Kyler Murray, because he is just, even just ignoring matchup, talking about just how they've scored so far this year. Kyler Murray has been a top 7 fantasy quarterback in every single start this year. So he has been the highest floor, highest upside option among all three of them. Russ has also been high floor, not quite as high a floor. I think he's been a top 13 fantasy quarterback in every single week so far. I'm not afraid of his matchup. I think that he's matchup proof, especially as they continue to keep the foot on the gas regarding, let Russ cook. And then number 3 would be Josh Allen, just because he has been the highest variance of the trio.
Yeah, I would say Josh Allen has been the most matchup sensitive. And when Josh Allen gets in tough matchups, it's been low floors for Josh Allen. When he gets in really good matchups, he absolutely smashes. The thing I would say about Russ is what Evan alluded to. If you believe matchups matter, and I really encourage people not to think too hard through this, but Rams have been excellent in pass defense this year. I mean, really, really excellent for what it's worth. Drew, how are you thinking through the top of the quarterback range? And I would note, just for the record, Josh Allen is $500 cheaper than Kyler on DraftKings, and that 500 could do some things for you on FanDuel. They were all within 200 of each other.
Yeah, I think I'd go with the Kyler, Josh Allen, Russ in terms of the rankings up top. Kyler and Josh just have a higher rushing floor and ceiling to them than Russell Wilson does. And on top of it, if, this late in the season, you start to get into tiebreaker situations with matchups, not only have the Rams been good, from a pass defense standpoint, but it's a divisional matchup where these teams know each other's tendencies a little bit more than the Buffalo Arizona situation. So I would lean to the Buffalo Arizona situation for me at the quarterback position in cash games.
You have to take the mustache off now. It's distracting
it's got like a minute left. I want it to just go naturally. I just want it to go naturally. It'll make for a great clip. We can cut it up. It'll be great.
Okay. Yeah. And so to me, so we've talked all year about the separation at quarterback, and in years past, and Dink, you can talk more about this, about how the optimal strategy was almost always in cash to pay down at quarterback. That has changed this year. And people are like, wait, what happened, Adam? You were paying $5K at quarterback every week in the past in cash. Now I see you spending $7K, $7,500. I'm talking about spending $8K this week at quarterback for Kyler. To me, what has changed is that the floor for these rushing throwing guys is now the same as like the ceiling for some of these throw only guys. So yeah, I could play Derek Carr. I could play Drew Lock. I could make a case for Carson Wentz maybe at 5,900. But man, when you start to add in the rushing ability, and Evan mentioned how they scored touchdowns, Josh Allen accounting for almost 90% of Buffalo's offensive touchdowns, Kyler in the same range. So I think that it's right to pay up at quarterback, even in cash now. Dink, have you thought about this just from a macro perspective?
Yeah, it's certainly right this week, right? Because we've got so much salary relief at the running back position. But when you've got these quarterbacks who are basically like the cheaper quarterbacks you played before with more ceiling on the passing side, and then the rushing floor and ceiling combination of kind of like a low level running back, it's just a totally different ballgame. It's like how we've talked about the running back position in terms of the running backs who have the pass game floor, like the Alvin Kamaras or whatever. You're basically getting a running back and a receiver in the same position. And that's what you're getting with these high-end quarterbacks. They're incredible. And so I think week in and week out, that combined with the quarterback floor on pricing kind of coming up a little bit, which the floor on all the positions has. But a lot of these cheap quarterbacks now that were 5K before are now 6K. And the gap between them and the high-end quarterbacks just isn't big enough to justify the gap in both the floor and the ceiling of these elite producers.
Okay, let's talk about some quarterbacks that are maybe less obvious, some quarterbacks that we think at least have a chance to beat those top three. I'll start with Aaron Rodgers, and I would say it's a pretty long shot, in my opinion, for Aaron Rodgers to beat these guys because we do not expect Jacksonville to turn this game into a shootout. You'll see in the projections that Aaron Rodgers is not projecting very well because we don't expect a high volume of pass attempts. However, I think we talked on Tuesday, Evan, Jake Luton exceeded expectations. What is your outlook for Aaron Rodgers in this game against Jacksonville?
I mean, he would be the first guy that I would bring up that maybe had a chance to score among that first tier, but he's still not in that tier. I don't think we're going to see the Texans put up nearly as many points as they did this week at Lambeau.
The Jaguars,
apparently the Jaguars, yeah. There are apparently weather concerns in this game as well. I don't know. I mean, Rodgers can absolutely have a good game, and I think just pairing him with Devontae Adams every week, that's probably been a plus EV strategy over the course of the year. And I think you can even run like a team stack with Aaron Jones as well, because I think Aaron Jones is in a really good spot, and I think we'll see him get 20 plus touches. The Jaguars have given up the second most points in the NFL this season. But yeah, I mean, there's still like a clear gap between Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, and down to Aaron Rodgers, I think.
Yeah, Evan mentioned the weather, and so it's supposed to be a little bit windy in Lambeau. My main weather that I'm watching right now, though, is in Cleveland again, where we saw the wind and the rain kind of wreck that Browns-Raiders game, and the early forecast in Cleveland for Texans-Browns is something along those lines. Again, maybe not quite as bad, but something along those lines. So I would knock down Deshaun Watson at least a little bit for now. Dink, I think on FanDuel, at least, Jared Goff is going to be in top plays because of his price, because of his matchup. Is there anything else site-specific you've seen, or anybody that you really stands out as that can beat the top three?
Not really. I mean, from a tournament perspective, I think to beat the top three guys, like, you need to have some sort of rushing component to you, or you need to be able to throw 5 touchdowns. And so you have to either be really confident in the offensive output for the team, or you need to see some of that rushing upside. So if you're talking about beating Kyler and Josh and Russ when they're all in good spots, it's got to be someone like Deshaun Watson, someone like Justin Herbert, those types of guys. I mean, Rodgers could certainly do it. The problem with Rodgers is always that it just comes with expensive skill players on top of it. So you need like really outsized performances and concentrated performances. You certainly get that from time to time with their offense. And then the other offenses, it's just tough. I know we have Brady projecting really well. He's a guy certainly that can pile up touchdowns in a pretty decent matchup against Carolina. They've got a strong team total, but it's hard to see how, if Kyler, Josh, or Russ even play to like their mean or median projection, it's hard to see how many quarterbacks are really going to blow them out of the water or compete with them. And there's not this big price gap. That's the other part of it.
Right.
They're priced close enough that you can make up the difference elsewhere.
Well, one thing that you could say for tournaments is that it could get concentrated at least. So if you play Jared Goff on FanDuel and you run into like an 11-182 game from Cooper Kupp, well, now you're talking if Kyler and Josh and Russ spread it around a little bit. So, Evan, what do you think about Jared Goff's spot and any other guys you like to beat, to at least have a shot at the top three?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Dink said is on point. I mean, we've seen like 4 touchdown games from Jared Goff. So it's not, and the Seahawks are, about as run or pass funnily as it gets. And the Rams have, been a run first offense to this point in the year. So this is a situation where they should probably air it out. I mean, they're one of the healthiest passing games in the NFL at this point. The Rams are. But over their last 5 games, they've barely scored 20 points per game. I was going to throw Drew Brees in there. Drew Brees has he's been like a high floor guy, but he has not had a blow up week yet. But now Michael Thomas is at or near 100%. Alvin Kamara is receiving back. He could score 2 receiving touchdowns. Jared Cook could chip one in. The 49ers are not getting any pressure. This is Drew Brees at home. The 49ers are without Kawan Williams, Richard Sherman, and Jaquiski Tart, 3 starters in the secondary. So Drew Brees would be a guy that, in a really, really good spot might go overlooked. Again, he doesn't bring that rushing, that rushing equity that these other, elite fantasy quarterbacks do. And Taysom Hill is, just the Satan of fantasy football. But, but Drew Brees, I think, is a guy that could have a 4 or 5 touchdown game.
I want to ask you about Justin Herbert, Evan, because we've seen him play so aggressively. We've seen the Chargers kind of change their scheme. They're throwing so much on early downs. We know the matchup against Miami is difficult. However, Justin Herbert, I'm not sure that it matters as much anymore. What do you think about Herbert this week?
Yeah, one thing I highlighted in matchups this week is that the Dolphins have given up their big, and they've been good in pass defense this year, but they've given up a lot of big games to quarterbacks that can move. Kyler, Cam, you could read the article for more on that. Josh Allen, and Justin Herbert can move. He has started 6 games, I think, so far. So he's at a disadvantage from playing time when you're looking at him ranked against other quarterbacks in rushing, but he's top 10 in rushing attempts and rushing yards. He's sub 4.7 in the 40. He's like an 80th percentile athlete. And he's a stud. I mean, the dude is really aggressive throwing the football downfield. He's got all of his weapons intact. So I never say bad things about Justin Herbert.
I would bring up 2 more guys as kind of thinner for tournaments, Ben Roethlisberger and Carson Wentz. This is the first time Carson Wentz is going to have all of his weapons, meaning Miles Sanders. He won't have Deshaun Jackson, but he won't have Zach Ertz, but he'll have Dallas guys. So he won't have all of his weapons, but he'll have Fulham.
You're still giving Zach Ertz weapon classification?
No, I'm not. They're better off without Zach Ertz. Exactly. They'll have Goddard, they'll have Miles, they'll have Fulham, they'll have Rieger, they'll have Greg Ward, and they could even mix in Alshon a little bit, who I expect to be active. So Carson gets 20 points, with just geeks off the street, and now you get at least some players in there for playmakers. I know it's not expected to be the best game environment. I kind of think that game could be higher scoring than maybe other people do. And then Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, Joe Burrow can incite shootouts, man. And I know this Pittsburgh defense is tough, but Joe Burrow drops back so much, has such good weapons. If Ben throws the ball 30, 40 times in this game to the weapons that he has, I think Ben has a ceiling for sure. Anything on those guys, Drew, or anything else at the quarterback position?
Yeah, I really like that Pittsburgh-Cincinnati game as kind of a sneaky stack target, especially on DraftKings where you get the full PPR, just because, as you said, like Burrow will drop back 60 times in a game. Now, it's an awful matchup against Pittsburgh's defense, and he could easily just take a ton of sacks and they could be just totally inept offensively. But in tournaments, you're playing guys for their upside, and there's a ton of upside there. Without Joe Mixon, you figure they're going to lean on the passing game even further, because Giovanni Bernard is more impactful in the passing game than he is in the running game. And then on Pittsburgh's side, Cincinnati defensively is just, not a threat in any way, shape, or form. So Pittsburgh should be able to kind of go up and down the field. Questions around kind of like, their rhythm after not having a week of practice with Roethlisberger and stuff. I don't know. I don't think it's really a big deal. I think they kind of took that Dallas game for granted and then just kind of, played the way that they needed to at the end. And so I kind of think that they come out in a way and not take this game for granted. And so I'm pretty interested in the Roethlisberger stacks with Cincinnati guys coming back. I'm not as interested in Burrow, because you really do need touchdowns from the quarterback position to get upside. And I know Burrow can get there, but I'm kind of expecting, if the right game script plays out, that Pittsburgh plays well, they score a lot of points, and then Burrow gets a bunch of dropbacks. You want the receivers from Burrow and you want the stacks from Pittsburgh.